On the day I lost my job, I walked through the door holding a bouquet of flowers and dinner, determined to shield my wife from the storm raging inside me. As soon as she spotted the flowers, she scoffed and remarked, "Is this a pity offering from a jobless fool?" She tossed the bouquet into the sink and turned to our daughter, gesturing towards me. "That's what failure looks like." I simply smiled, swallowing my pride and saying nothing. Just 3 weeks later, my phone buzzed incessantly with 47 frantic messages pleading for my attention. Flashback to last month. I'm a 38-year-old man cruising through what seemed like a typical Tuesday. The day started at 5:30 a.m. with a gentle kiss on the forehead for my sleeping wife, Isabella, who's 36. Before I brewed some coffee and headed to the officia routine I'd followed diligently for 7 years. My life felt stable and secure until it wasn't. Around 10 a.m., Declan summoned me to his office. That's when the first pillar of my world began to crumble. Budget constraints, organizational reshuffle, something personal, they said. My role was being eliminated. 7 years of dedication, consistently surpassing targets, turned out to be worthless when the company's bottom line demanded cuts. As I sat there, it felt like the ground beneath me had turned into quicksand. I nodded automatically, listening to his corporate spiel about tough choices and valued contributions. Although the severance package was fair, 3 months' salary plus benefits, that wasn't the core issue. My entire identity felt like it had been demolished. I was always the provider, the steady force, the one who got things done. I found myself sitting in my car for 20 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel. I didn't cry or lash out. Instead, my mind was recalibrating, much like a GPS trying to find a new path after losing signal. Caught in a whirlwind of panic and an odd sense of calm, I made a decision that, in hindsight, was the first nail in the coffin of my marriage. I chose not to go home and wallow in self-pity. Instead, I swung by Trader Joe's and picked up everything I needed to make Isabella's favorite pasta dish. I also grabbed a lovely bottle of red wine and a stunning bouquet of lilac and hydrangeas. It all set me back $6.5 money I probably shouldn't have spent, but I wanted to show that we're in this together. A team ready to face whatever comes our way. I got home early and painstakingly spent 2 hours crafting the perfect evening. I even managed to find some candles. The table looked like it was straight out of a romantic comedy, a little escape from reality. I hoped that by creating this beautiful scene, I could soften the news I had to break. Losing my job didn't mean I'd lost my ability to take care of my family. We'd get through this. By the time Isabella walked in at 5:30 with our daughter, Catalina, fresh from her piano lesson, the atmosphere was set. But when Isabella glanced at the elegantly arranged table, the flowers, and the whole setup, her expression changed. It wasn't the look of surprise or appreciation I had hoped for. One evening, as soon as she steps through the door, her eyes meet mine, bypassing usual pleasantries like "what's the occasion?" or "this is lovely." Instead, she instantly senses there's something off, her uncanny ability to detect trouble never failing. With a playful attempt to keep the mood light for Catalina, I suggest we chat after dinner, but Isabella won't let it slide. She insists on knowing right then. So, I take a deep breath and tell her, as calmly and rationally as I can, about the layoffs. I reassure her that we're okay, we've got savings and severance, and I'll find a new job soon. She shifts her gaze to the bouquet I'm awkwardly holding, and lets out a short, ironic laugh. "What's this?" she asks, her voice dripping with sarcasm, a guilt gift from an unemployed clown. Her words land with the force of a wrecking ball, striking a chord deep within. What unfolded next shattered everything I believed about our marriage. As I handed her the bouquet, she walked over to the kitchen sink and, to my disbelief, tossed the flowers right in. Water sprayed everywhere. Turning to Catalina, she declared, "That's what failure looks like." Our daughter stood there, confused and frightened. I managed a smile and stayed silent, not because I was particularly wise, but because I was utterly stunned. The foundation of our relationship suddenly felt foreign, like I'd been building on a mirage all along. Catalina started to tear up, and Isabella snapped at her to stop being dramatic. Meanwhile, our dinner cooled, forgotten, as Isabella unleashed a torrent of frustration about responsibilities and mortgages, claiming this wasn't what she'd signed up for. After Catalina went to bed that night, the real digging began. Isabella poured out her heart and frustrations revelations that would keep us both awake for hours. I could already feel the embarrassment creeping in as the reality of the situation sank into her. The questions started swirling in my mind. How would she ever face her friends after this? What would become of the Aspen getaway they'd been so eagerly planning? And the country club membership she cherished so much, what about that? Not once did she pause to ask how I was feeling through all of this. That night, I couldn't bring myself to lie beside her, so I took the couch instead. As I stared up at the ceiling, memories rushed back like a dam bursting, ignoring all those red flags had finally caught up to me. I remembered how she winced when my buddy Russell showed up in his old Honda, temporarily replacing his Tesla while it was being repaired. Or how she suddenly had to reschedule dinners with my college friends because they weren't successful enough. Her sharp comments about our neighbor's new pool, insinuating they knew how to live right. Her endless obsession with Instagram, constantly dreaming of influencer-style luxury getaways. The next morning, while she was at her Pilates class, I took a hard look at our finances and uncovered a shocking secret. 6 months ago, she'd opened a separate credit card, and since then had racked up over $1,150 in charges at Nordstrom, Sephora, and mysterious weekend girls trips. Little revelations explaining her recent distance. When Isabella returned home, it was as if nothing had changed for her. She was already on the phone with her friend, Rhonda, venting about how humiliated she felt over my predicament. Our expenses fueled my determination even more. The facade had to be maintained for now, but beneath the surface, a new chapter was beginning to unfold. As Isabella continued with her lavish lifestyle, believing herself to be the one pulling the strings, I was quietly weaving a different tapestry of our future. Russell's venture was promising a solid opportunity brimming with potential. We spent long hours strategizing, envisioning something remarkable that would soon be within reach. Each night, I would return home to a wife who seemed more like a stranger, her empathy for our situation buried beneath layers of disdain and self-importance. Her harsh words, carelessly tossed around our daughter, sparked a fire in me. I knew things had to change, not just for my own sake, but for the future I wanted for Catalina. Our life was at a crossroads, and I was ready to take the path less traveled, the one that promised growth, stability, and above all, dignity. This was a silent rebellion, a transformation that Isabella didn't see coming, and the day she would realize it, everything would be different. The wheels were set in motion, and there was no turning back now. All the expenses we faced were stepping stones paving the way for what lay ahead. By the third week, the plans were set in motion. Yet, Isabella remained blissfully unaware. She was too occupied telling our friends about how she was valiantly supporting her struggling husband, all while retreating emotionally and financially. On the 21st day after my dismissal, Russell and I wrapped up our plans that very evening. Isabella informed me she was taking Catalina to her sister's for the weekend. Needing some space from all the negativity, the timing couldn't have been better. As they departed, my phone buzzed with a notification from our joint account. Isabella had just withdrawn $5,000 for a mental health retreat with her sister. With a small smile, I resumed packing my essentials. 2 days later, my phone buzzed incessantly, first 5 messages, then 12, escalating to 29. By day's end, I had 47 texts, calls, and voicemails. But that's a tale for another day. This one's already lengthy enough, and I need a drink just to unwind from sharing it all. Interest on emotional debt accumulates like clockwork, compounding every single day. First things first, I just have to thank you all for the overwhelming response to my last post. I was absolutely floored to see it hit 13K upvotes along with a gold award. It seems some of you are deeply invested in the dramatic saga that is my marriage, which is both hilarious and oddly comforting. Your support has been a lifeline during this roller coaster. Let me bring you up to speed. Picture this: 47 messages lighting up my phone like fireworks. But before I dive into that, let's rewind a little. It's been 2 weeks since what I sarcastically call Unemployed Clown Day, leading up to this digital chaos. The morning after I lost my job, Isabella was already knee-deep in damage control mode. Dana to help me, but to protect her own image. She made me swear to keep my job loss a secret until she could craft the perfect spin on it, as if my unemployment was a PR emergency of epic proportions. All the while, those wilted kitchen flowers sat neglected, slumped over like they couldn't withstand the weight of their own symbolism. She insisted they lingered as a stark reminder of consequences. The battle at home unfolded right in our own kitchen. By the third day, Catalina started acting differently. She began asking me heartbreaking questions like whether we'd become homeless or if I was truly a failure. As her mom had said, it shattered me. I sat her down and gently explained that losing a job doesn't define one's worth. It's just a part of life that many encounter. She seemed to understand, or at least, she nodded along. Just then, Isabella burst into the room, rolling her eyes so dramatically I was surprised she didn't hurt herself. But beneath the surface, I was laying the groundwork for our next steps. Every morning, I'd put on a show, browsing job sites on my laptop in plain view whenever Isabella passed by. But the moment she left for her daily workout or her lunch with Rhonda, I switched gears, diving into Zoom calls with Russell to hash out new plans. You see, Russell had been inviting me for years to join him in his consulting business. Out of loyalty to my previous job, I always declined. Funny how things work out, isn't it? The stage was finally set for a fresh beginning. Our business plan was rock solid, integrating my technical skills with Russell's established client connections. Even with a cautious outlook, our projections promised profitability within half a year. Russell was thrilled to have me on board, repeatedly declaring that we were bound for success. However, by the second week, Isabella began what felt like a psychological offensive. She subtly undermined my efforts, like conveniently accidentally shutting my laptop in the middle of my work. She also made snide comments regarding my resume, comparing it unfavorably to her friend's husband, who supposedly had impeccable formatting skills. One night, after Catalina had gone to bed, Isabella insisted on having a reality check discussion with me. She claimed I needed to set my sights lower and consider any job, even in retail or fast food. Remarkably, she suggested that I apply at the local store where her yoga buddy's teenage son works. When I mentioned that taking such a job would mean a severe pay cut, she merely shrugged and stated, "Beggars can't be choosers." Just a month ago, Isabella was adamant that our perfectly fine kitchen needed a makeover because the cabinets were supposedly an eyesore. That night, I discreetly scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor. Isabella didn't have a clue. She thought I was off to a job interview. When I laid out our financial situation for the advisor, his reaction was a revelation. We were just one unexpected expense away from a serious financial meltdown. Isabella's spending habits had left us teetering on the brink, and losing my job had set off the first domino. What really shocked me was discovering a personal loan she had secretly taken out 6 months earlier, an astonishing $22,000. Where did it all go? Designer handbags, a hidden Botox stash, and an emergency fund that her friend Rhonda had apparently convinced her every savvy wife should keep under wraps from her husband. Leaving that office, I had two things: an unvarnished view of our financial mess and the beginnings of a plan to navigate it. Strengthen my financial independence, distinct from Isabella, as a priority. Document everything meticulously in preparation for the inevitable fallout. Keep Catalina safe, no matter what. Seal the partnership agreement with Russell. That weekend was time for the neighborhood BBQ. It turned awkward fast. By then, everyone already knew about my job situation, courtesy of Isabella's gossip network. Most of the neighbors were understanding, offering connections and hinting at job openings. And then Declan arrived. He's my ex-boss, the one who let me go. Isabella practically sprinted across the lawn the moment she saw him. For the next hour, she was glued to his side, laughing too loudly at his terrible jokes, touching his arm right there in front of me, his wife, and frankly, the entire neighborhood. She wasn't exactly subtle. Later, I overheard her telling Declan she'd love to discuss opportunities at his company because apparently, someone in our house needs to be making real money. To his credit, Declan looked pretty uncomfortable with the whole situation. His wife's expression was thunderous, a storm brewing right in our living room. That same night, I discreetly opened a separate bank account, feeling the urgency of the situation. It was now 15 days since losing my job, a time filled with uncertainty. But then, a beacon of hope. Russell texted me, saying we had our first client meeting lined up. This was no ordinary client, either an influential force in the industry. The meeting itself was a triumph. The client was so impressed with our presentation that they practically agreed on the spot. While the contract wasn't colossal, it promised steady work for at least 6 months, along with a generous payout. It was the first brick in the new foundation I was determined to build. I decided not to tell Isabella about this new development just yet. Instead, I met with the divorce attorney, paying the consultation fee in cash. It was a crucial step, arming myself with the knowledge I needed to protect my future in Catalina. The attorney was refreshingly honest, pointing out how Isabella's spending habits, her treatment of me, and the momentum of my new career prospects actually left me in a surprisingly favorable position. On day 18, Isabella confronted me in the kitchen, her presence demanding my attention. Her prying eyes had been all over my browser history, as if my privacy were a mere suggestion. Yet, despite her snooping, she couldn't find proof of all the job applications I swore I was sending out. Then she delivered the real blow. She was rethinking our future because she hadn't signed up to support a man who wasn't self-sufficient. Funny how she claimed to be providing support when her emotional presence in my life had been non-existent. That night, even though I was still banished to the couch, I decided to make some concrete changes. I found a humble two-bedroom apartment close to Catalina's school and began setting things in motion for a business venture with Russell. I lined up the movers for a strategic moment when Isabella would be out of the house. On day 20, Isabella told me she and Catalina planned to spend the weekend at Joanne's for a break from all the negative energy, her euphemism for me. I just nodded, feeling the first genuine smile I'd managed in weeks beginning to form. As they left on that Friday afternoon, I sprang into action like a well-oiled machine. The movers arrived, and soon, all my essentials were safely on their way to my new beginning. Apartment paperwork, officially recognizing our business partnership. I moved my share of our joint savings into my new account, just my half, of course, all properly documented. I left the formal divorce papers on the kitchen table, neatly paired with printed statements revealing Isabella's secret spending, loans, and credit cards. I also included a detailed custody plan for Catalina and wrote a heartfelt letter, assuring her that I wasn't abandoning our family. I was simply on a journey to rebuild myself away from someone who only saw me as a paycheck. Saturday morning marked a significant milestone as our first press release went live, catching the attention of a local business journal and an industry newsletter. Russell's established business had teamed up with me to launch a new division. While it wasn't a giant leap, it was solid, respectable, and brimming with potential. Isabella and Catalina were set to return home by Sunday evening, and on Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a notification. Isabella had just withdrawn $5,000 from our joint account. Was it a last-minute panic shopping spree, or something more alarming like a flight risk? Only time would tell. At 6:14 p.m. on Sunday, the first text came through. It was starkly clear that she had just walked in the door and seen the documentation I had left. I was buried in paperwork when the storm began. By 6:30 p.m., I'd received 5 messages. That number jumped to 12 by 7:15, and by 8 o'clock, it skyrocketed to 29. By the time midnight rolled around, there were 47 messages, alongside a barrage of voicemails and missed calls. In the beginning, the messages bristled with anger. "How dare you?" they accused. "Coward. Crawl back home now." Then, the mood darkened, turning into threats. "I'll tell everyone you abandoned us. You'll never see Catalina again." As the evening wore on, desperation seeped in. "Where's the money? What did you do?" Finally, around the 38th message, the tune changed entirely. "I made a mistake," it confessed. "We can work this out. Please come home." I avoided responding to any messages except for a short text to confirm I'd be picking up Catalina from school on Monday as planned, and that any further communication should go through my attorney. Then, at 1:23 a.m., Isabella's sister, Joanne, unexpectedly called. Bracing myself for more criticism, I was instead surprised by her apology. She admitted that she had advised Isabella to leave me, calling me useless, about 3 weeks ago. However, she also revealed that Isabella intended to leave me even before that. Losing my job merely sped up her decision. Joanne had come across my business announcement online and pieced everything together. The real surprise, Isabella hadn't even told Joanne about the flowers left in the sink or about calling me a failure in front of our daughter. She had portrayed herself as the supportive wife enduring a husband struggling with depression. That night, I slept more peacefully than I had in years, finally settled in my own place without anyone reminding me of my perceived failures. Monday morning greeted me with a LinkedIn notification as I cracked open my eyes. Declan, my old boss, had gone out of his way to endorse me, celebrating our business announcement with a commendation that almost made me blush. Meanwhile, Isabella had somehow tracked me down on every platform known to humanity, even going as far as to send a friend request on my Strava running app at 3 in the morning. That was my wake-up call. It wasn't the end of the chaos, but the start of rebuilding my life from scratch. This is the final chapter, the grand finale you've all been eagerly anticipating. I've got to admit, the support from all you strangers out there has been unexpectedly healing. A tip of the hat to the Reddit community. You've been more uplifting than my ex-wife ever was. So there I was, stepping into a new Monday morning in my freshly minted apartment. The walls were bare, echoing the sound of change, and there was IKEA furniture I had cobbled together like a haphazard jigsaw puzzle, minus 3 screws that definitely had a home somewhere. The air was rich with the scent of fresh paint and chance, but what a heady perfume of freedom that was. The first thing that hit me was the depth of the silence. No need for silent gestures or the slamming of cabinet doors to express discontent, just a soothing calm surrounding me. Yet, my phone continued to erupt with countless notifications. As I brushed my teeth, message 48 arrived. "James, please, just talk to me. This isn't fair." By the time I sipped my morning coffee, message 53 chimed in. "I didn't mean those things. I was just stressed about money." Message 59 buzzed on my way out the door. "I talked to a lawyer, and what you did is considered abandonment. I can take everything." It's intriguing to observe the unraveling of someone's psyche in panic mode, especially when you're no longer the one bearing its brunt. My first stop that morning was Catalina's school. The night before, I had emailed her teacher to explain the circumstances. Miss Thompson was truly exceptional. When I got there, Catalina was all set. Thanks to her, the expression on my daughter's face when she spotted me was complex, a blend of relief, confusion, and that strange guilt children often feel when their parents are going through a divorce, even though it's absolutely not their fault. Once we were in the car, I kept my explanation straightforward. I gently told her that her mom and I would be living in separate places for a while. I reassured her that I had a new apartment, conveniently close to her school, where she would have her very own room. I made sure she knew that both of us loved her deeply and that none of this was because of anything she had done. Then she asked, with heartbreaking innocence, if it was because I was a failure. Those were her exact words. it felt like Isabella's destructive influence had struck deep. My hands began to tremble so much that I had to pull over. I needed to make her understand that losing a job doesn't define someone as a failure. Sometimes, companies have to make changes that have nothing to do with how well you perform at your job. I shared updates with her about the new business venture with Uncle Russell, and her reaction was unsettling. She brought up a comment from Mom, who claimed I couldn't find a job because I wasn't good enough. There's a unique kind of rage that ignites when someone uses your child as a weapon in their emotional arsenal. It feels like a heavy, cold weight settling in your chest. In an effort to shake off the frustration, I took Catalina out for some ice cream and then showed her the new apartment. She spent a delightful 20 minutes arranging her stuffed animals on the bed in the second bedroom. She mentioned how much she loved hearing the birds chirping through the window. Moments like these are small victories. When I took her back home that evening, Isabella was already on the porch. Every detail of her appearance painstakingly perfect down to the flawless makeup and a brand new outfit I'd never seen before. It was astonishing to witness such a transformation from dismissive to desperately seeking reconciliation just 3 days. She even attempted to pull me into a hug. I paused for a moment, taking a step back as she broke down in tears right there on the porch. Trembling with emotion, she confessed that she'd made a terrible mistake, overwhelmed by the pressure of seeing all her friends thriving. She just couldn't handle it all and snapped. I listened quietly and told her that our discussions would have to move through our lawyers. I assured Catalina that we would keep our usual Wednesday plans together and left Isabella standing in the doorway as I drove off. Was I too harsh? Some might think so, but it didn't compare to the sting of having flowers tossed aside and being labeled a failure in front of our child. By Tuesday morning, my phone was flooded with 17 new messages, and Isabella had erupted on social media. She posted a throwback wedding photo with a hollow caption about fighting for love and standing by each other through tough times. The comments section was buzzing. While half of her friends showed their support, the other half seemed baffled, likely because she had been speaking negatively about me for weeks. Around 10, Russell called with good news. Our client was thrilled with our initial work and wanted to expand the project scope. It wasn't a huge financial gain yet, but it promised steady and growing prospects. The foundation was solidifying. On Wednesday, I picked up Catalina as planned. Isabella coincidentally decided to leave just as I arrived. She was wearing that blue dress I'd always admired, and she asked if we could meet for coffee sometime, just to talk. I told her I'd consider it once the initial legal matters were settled. Her smile faltered slightly at the edges. Catalina later mentioned that Mommy had been crying a lot and had thrown. All the wine disappeared from the house. Her obsessive cleaning was a classic stress signal from someone who suddenly realized they made a major miscalculation. By Friday, just a week after our separation, I had received 106 messages from her. They spiraled from anger to pleading, then shifted to long-winded promises about how she'd finally support my dreams and had always believed in me. Deep down, then came the harsh dose of financial reality. My attorney reached out to let me know that Isabella's lawyer had made contact. She wanted to put a hold on the divorce proceedings and suggested we give counseling a try. My attorney made it clear that wasn't how these things worked. She also informed me that since I left, Isabella had maxed out 2 more credit cards and questioned what her plan was to manage the mounting debt. During the first weekend of our new custody arrangement, Catalina was with me from Saturday to Sunday evening. We made the living room our world by constructing a magnificent pillow fort. We immersed ourselves in the magic of Disney movies and attempted to make pancakes, which turned out looking more like pieces of abstract art than breakfast. But to us, they were perfect. We sat down to enjoy breakfast together, a comforting ritual that seemed to sparkle with newfound joy. As we nibbled on our toast, she asked if we could finally get a dog now that we had moved into the apartment. I told her maybe soon, once we felt more settled in our new space. These simple, everyday moments felt like treasures because they were no longer overshadowed by Isabella's constant judgment. On Sunday night, Isabella was there waiting when I dropped Catalina off. Her eyes were red and puffy. It was clear she had been crying. She mentioned, almost as if needing reassurance, that she had started therapy and was committed to making changes. That's when I noticed her surprising gesture. She had posted about my business success on her Instagram, something I had missed because I muted her social media updates shortly after we separated. Her messages had become less frequent, but increasingly bizarre. She sent links to houses for sale, vacation rentals, and screenshots of couples therapy options. There was even a photo of our wedding venue, hauntingly captionless. It was digital desperation, a plea without words. And then, without warning, came the ambush. On a Tuesday afternoon, Isabella unexpectedly appeared at my apartment door around 6:30 p.m., holding a bottle of wine and takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. I still don't know how she found my address, perhaps through a mutual friend. I didn't invite her in. Instead, we stood in the hallway, caught in a conversation that stirred up old emotions. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed how she had finally realized what truly mattered in life. She spoke about how she had been consumed by the facade of social media and the exhausting effort of keeping up appearances. Losing me, she admitted, had opened her eyes to the person she had become. 6 months ago, her words might have melted my heart, made me believe in her transformation. But I knew better now. A woman who had once angrily thrown flowers into a sink doesn't change overnight. The underlying issues were far too deep for a simple fix. I listened and acknowledged her reflection, but I made it clear that I needed space. My focus was on co-parenting Catalina, and nothing could divert me from that priority. She left the food and wine at my door, her dramatic sobs echoing down the hallway as she walked away. My neighbor from across the hall peeked out, shot me a look that said yikes, and quickly retreated back into his apartment. The joys of week 3 in apartment living. Isabella's sister, Joanne, called me again. She said Isabella was spiraling, missing work, and even talking about giving me everything just to win me back. Joanne, with a hint of regret in her voice, apologized for how she had unwittingly supported Isabella's obsession with materialism over the years. She told me how their parents had always drilled it into them to marry well, and it had cast a shadow on both their lives. Meanwhile, Russell and I were quietly building something solid together. No glitzy showmanship, just steady progress. My confidence was slowly, but surely coming back, not because of any business triumphs, but because I was finally discovering who I was without Isabella's constant criticism filling the background. A month after I moved out, I agreed to meet Isabella at a coffee shop. Neutral ground, a place where old ghosts couldn't haunt us as easily. She showed up 15 minutes early, as the barista later confirmed to me. She'd already ordered my usual drink and was guarding it as though it held the key to our reconciliation. Our conversation turned out to be eye-opening, peeling back layers I hadn't seen before. After we got through the initial tears and apologies, I asked one simple question that seemed to hold the entire weight of our years together. Why did you marry me? Her response laid bare the fundamental flaw in our relationship. She spoke of how promising I had seemed, how her friends were always impressed by my potential, and how she envisioned us climbing the social ladder together. Not once did she mention love, partnership, or mutual respect. When I pointed this out, she looked at me, genuinely puzzled. Of course, she loved me, she insisted. Why else would she have spent 12 years building a life with me? The concept that marriage might be about more than investment and return about emotional depth and shared growth seemed foreign to her. I left that coffee shop with a newfound clarity, a bittersweet understanding that sometimes what we believe we're building is the same as what we truly need. There was nothing left to build upon. Fast forward 6 months, and we've settled into a new normal. Catalina now splits her time between 2 homes and sees a child therapist, helping her navigate through it all. The business with Russell is on the rise, offering steady stability even if it doesn't make us wealthy. Isabella, facing financial strains, sold her luxury SUV and designer bags to manage her debts. I've started dating casually, keeping things light. To save on expenses, Isabella moved back in with her parents, though she sometimes sends those nostalgic remember when texts at 2 a.m. Yesterday marked Catalina's 11th birthday. We organized a small gathering at a local park and neutral ground. Isabella and I kept things amicable, even managing to take a picture together for Catalina's sake. As the party wrapped up, Isabella pulled me aside. With sincerity in her eyes, she asked if I ever considered giving us another chance, mentioning that she had learned and grown from the past. I gazed at her, truly took her in. Despite the financial challenges she faced, she remained as striking as ever, always impeccably composed. Yet, all I could recall was the time she stood in our kitchen, surrounded by the chaos of flowers in the sink, teaching our daughter that a man's value lay in his paycheck. I told her I was happy she was doing better, but between us, the damage was irreparable. This morning, I revisited the florist where, 6 months ago, I'd purchased those ill-fated blooms. This time, I chose a humble bouquet of wildflowers. Returning home, I found Catalina getting ready for school. I handed her the bouquet, explaining that sometimes flowers are simply a gesture of love, not driven by guilt or expectation. She beamed, placing them in a water glass because we still haven't bought a proper vase. Then she asked if we could go for ice cream after school. In that moment, I realized that true vindication doesn't come from witnessing someone else's downfall. It arises from creating something beautiful from the debris they left behind.